$214.48 billion. In October of 2018, USA Today came out with an article that listed the most valuable brands in the world. And to no surprise, tech companies took the majority of the top spots. According to the study, a company with a bitten apple as its logo was considered the most valuable brand in the world. While their brand was valued at over $214 billion, their annual revenue was just north of that at an astonishing $258.5 billion. Research would suggest that the average person is exposed to upwards of 5,000 brand messages every day. Through all of that clutter, there are still companies out there whose brands are so powerful it makes them stand out. Amazing that a little startup company can become one of the most recognizable brands. You want proof of that? Simply show the logo and people instantly recognize the organization. While Apple may be the most valuable brand in the world today, business world that is, what do you think is the most important? No, I'm not talking about Google, Coca-Cola, Amazon, Nike, or even McDonald's. I put out there that the most important brand is you. You are the most important brand. We have but one life, and we can choose to make a difference in our world that will make a lasting impact for future generations. What is essential is that we have to stay true to ourselves, what we believe in, our values, our brand. Who we are when we are alone is who we really are. We do currently have symbols that are universal that represent peace, that can be recognized even without words. There's the dove, or you've heard the expression, extend an olive branch. We have the peace sign that we make with our hands. We also have a peace symbol that was designed by Gerald Holtom, which is a combination of the semaphore signals for the letters N and D taken to stand for nuclear disarmament. These symbols transcend generations, cultures, and languages. They're symbolic of our hopes and our dreams. Today, I want to call us to dedicate ourselves or rededicate ourselves to also being a peace brand. You and I may never become a peace ambassador as recognized by the United Nations, or even a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. But it does not mean that you cannot influence your family, your community, or even culture towards greater peace. To be a peace brand is to strive for a life that exemplifies the idea of living for the benefit and betterment of others. It is a life that is steadfast to the promotion of universal moral values, equal access to resources and education, to the building strong families and the communities while we strive for an international harmony, while we strive for the culture of peace. I would like to impress upon us all two things if we're going to be true peace ambassadors, or at least be a true peace brand. We have to become more aware and we have to become more involved. We have to be what the brand stands for. We have to be that constant message day in and day out. And it cannot be different when we're in public. They have to be the same. The first is become more aware. We must become more educated and more awakened to what may be outside of our safe bubble. We have to be willing to see that there are challenges beyond where we are, beyond our perceived reality, as we may not face the same circumstances or be in the same type of environments as other people. In my youth, I recall being told that I needed to become more aware of my surroundings. Initially, I thought it was because I kept bumping into everything and the people and the objects, and I am a clumsy person by nature. But this is not the reasoning behind why my mother kept saying this to me. She was trying to protect me, and she wanted me not to be so naive and gullible. Now, much later, and having been married for almost 21 years, my lovely wife from time to time will remind me that I need to become more aware. Now, this carries a different meaning, while at the same time being rooted in her heart of wanting to protect me. What Leslie means by saying I should become more aware is that I need to be more in tune personally. I need to be able to grow in my ability to perceive, feel, and be conscious of the things that are going on around me, including people and events. To feel their hurts, pains, their hopes, While I believe my wife is gifted with perception, or what she would say is a higher level of consciousness, it does not change that I got to grow in this area, that I can grow in becoming more aware. I believe that some of my fellow presenters at this summit may speak to this. But if I may add a simple illustration to aid in cultivating awareness, let me do it with this. Can I encourage you to look inward and perhaps look at the practice of controlled breathing? This could be the first step in calming the mind chatter and bringing yourself back to a state of being present. When you are consciously in the present moment, concentrating on your breathing, on the breath, the mind can rest and awareness can take place. You could try an exercise of a 3 or 4 second count. How this works is that you breathe through your nose for a 3 second count, hold it in for 3 seconds, and then exhale through your mouth for 3 seconds. This is actually an exercise I have my public speaking clients work on. The challenge with becoming a peace brand may lie in the fact that many don't take action because their lives aren't directly impacted or affected to the point of discomfort. Perhaps you're forced to become more aware. I'd like to share a story about a young child named Noah Cabia, who 4 years ago at the age of 6 was diagnosed with leukemia. You see, Noah is a child prodigy. He has an amazing gift in music, and he's a natural with the drums. The family's world was torn apart, and you could say they had no peace. There was only confusion and frustration, and eventually a resolve that they came to was holding on to their faith and deciding to fight and raise awareness of childhood cancer. Walks and concerts were conducted, as well as other fundraisers, including the selling of special designed t-shirts that were in Noah's favorite color, red. On the top of the shirt was the word beat. The bottom of the shirt was the word cancer. And in the middle was a drawing of a boy playing the drums. After years of treatment, Noah is thankfully now in remission. But it doesn't stop him or his family from continuing to raise awareness and supporting other families looking for their own peace. You know, there are other stories of those who become advocates of peace, not because it was convenient, but because they were in the midst of incredible conflict. Take time to listen and study on Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela. How about Malala Yousafzai, who has become the youngest ever UN messenger of peace for her efforts to promote Pakistani human rights and education, especially for women and young girls. There are times when you're not thrust into, but you're rather introduced to a cause that help produce greater awareness. About 5 years ago, a friend of mine, Paul Jackowitz, sent me a video message, and in that message it said that he had nominated me to do the Ice Bucket Challenge. What in the world was that? Why would I take a bucket of water and ice and pour it over my head? What I learned is that the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was a campaign to promote awareness of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and encourage donations for research. So after filming yourself dumping a bucket of water and ice over your head, you were then to nominate a minimum of 3 people, having only 24 hours, or at least a 24-hour time frame to complete the challenge, and then make a donation to the ALS Foundation or ALS Association. You might ask, did it work? It went viral in 2014, and it led to more than 17 million people posting videos online, and it raised more than $115 million. More people became aware of the disease and continue to support research in hopes of finding a cure. All this to raise awareness. The second thing I want to impress upon you, if you're going to be a brand ambassador, is you have to get involved, and you have to stay involved. While it's important to talk about, we now need to be about it. Get involved in whatever you believe will drive you toward your brand, your peace brand. For some, this may mean helping to facilitate healing, political education, speaking out for social inequalities, or addressing climate injustice. Involvement can take the form of protesting, calling upon your political leaders and asking them to take action, moving for bills and laws to be passed, and to see that the causes you strongly believe in are addressed, such as human rights, education, and having access to resources for all people. You can align yourself with campaigns and organizations that speak to your passion by volunteering your time and money. Collaborative efforts create synergy and can shorten the runway toward accomplishing and furthering your peace brand. You could also just roll up your pants leg and take a jump in the deep end. You could visit a conflict area locally or abroad. But may I add that you should jump with caution. Today there are plenty of opportunities that are out there to safely get to know what it's like to be in the middle of a conflict, whether you're going to the Middle East and Palestine or going to regions of Africa or South America. That experience could definitely reinforce your work and really adding to your peace brand. It can motivate and lead others to choose to follow your example. Be creative. Get into writing. Get into blogging. In January 2010, a massive earthquake rocked the nation of Haiti. Countless lives were lost and an estimated 215,000 homes and commercial buildings were destroyed. I have a friend named Larry who's a civil engineer, went down to Haiti to help with the rebuilding efforts. He has a specialty in earthquake engineering. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as earthquake engineering. But what that is, that specialty field is a science and study of the performance of buildings and structures when it's subject to seismic loading. Sadly, 9 years later, the nation is still recovering and they're still trying to rebuild. Larry felt the call to do more than just visit one time and wanted to take it upon himself to create a mission. He now takes yearly trips and he created educational programs where he and other volunteers would teach the locals a trade that they can support their families and continue their own rebuilding efforts for creating a more stable country. This is a story of if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach the man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Not only am I a consultant, speaker, and coach, I'm also a minister of over 25 years, and from time to time, I have to jump in. I get involved with churches and leadership groups, and I help with conflict resolution. It might be hard to believe, but even spiritual leaders can struggle with pride and misunderstanding, and this is where I come in. I'm a pastor to the pastors, and I often remind church boards, leadership teams, clergy that we either have partnerships or we have sinking ships. We can't make it alone. David Swanson was asked why he decided to get involved and why he himself became a peace activist. He shared that he became a full-time peace activist by joining boards of local peace at the local peace center. He joined all kinds of coalitions and groups nationally. He traveled and spoke out and he protested and he sat in on Capitol Hill. In fact, he said he sat out or at least camped out once at George Bush's ranch. And he was dedicated. He was drafting articles and writing books and building websites for peace organizations. And he went on book tours and spoke on panels. He debated. He did interviews. He even visited war zones. He studied peace activism, past and present, and he began to question everything and everywhere he went. When asked, how did he become a peace activist? Were there patterns in his life or stories that he heard from others? Was there something that explained this? People kept asking. He said, how do you stay cheerful? Why don't you ever quit? That one was pretty easy, and he didn't want to dodge it. He said, I work for peace. Because sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But we have a responsibility, every one of us, to try. Because trying is far more enjoyable and fulfilling than anything else. There's so many great stories out there of men and women who have gotten involved to make a difference on the war of inequality, human trafficking, and on gun violence. And they have immersed themselves to make a difference. We could do that with how we live and how we shop and what we support, including certain clothing organizations that promote peace, such as Wear the Peace and Peace Love World. You're likely motivated more now than ever to strengthen the peace brand, to strengthen your brand. Here are a few things to keep in mind when looking at being a peace brand. Who do you want to reach? Determine what your ideal target audience is. It might be millennials who are active online. It might be a specific community group. Consider or drive more specifically into what motivates them and what their pain points are and what they're influenced by currently. Ask yourself, what's my mission? Can you share what your mission is in one sentence? If you can't do this, then it might be more complicated or too confusing. We all know the Nike tagline, just do it. But do you know what their mission statement is? Nike's mission is to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Craft a clear statement of what you and your brand are all about. Another organization, Starbucks. It's the world's leading specialty coffee retailer, and their brand has always promised to bring people together. What's Starbucks' mission? To inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. And by the way, if you and I ever work together, I want you to know that my favorite is the organic shade-grown Mexico brand. You could also identify and form your own voice. This is how you communicate with your audience. And in many ways, this is how they respond and communicate with you. This brand voice can be very professional, service-oriented, or it could just be very informative. This is what resonates with your audience. Apple is obviously not just another computer company. Some of their key qualities include clean design and ease of use, from unique packaging to the way they announce their special events and revealing of their new Apple products. They want everyone to know that the way they looked at their slogan back in the late 90s, think different, is the same way they look at their business today. Be consistent with the peace brand personality on everything you do in every facet of your life. When people think of you, they think there's an advocate of peace. It can be as simple as having a conversational voice and learning to say we instead of just I. Sharing behind the scenes content, telling stories about real life experiences, maybe even your own. Using creativity, going on social media platforms, blogging or websites. And speaking of these most valuable brands, many of those companies started in garages or basements. They started with just a simple idea, and before you knew it, they became multi-billion-dollar organizations. Their brands are recognizable, and their brands speak for themselves. You may not be the most recognizable brand or the most valuable brand, at least from a business standpoint, but you could be the most important brand. If we're going to define and be a peace brand, we would need to center on these two things. We need to become more aware, and we need to become more involved. Be creative. Choose peace. Choose to be a peace brand, and others will take notice. Instead of saying, that's Google, that's Apple, that's Nike, let it be that when people see you, they say, there's an agent of peace, an advocate of peace. That's a peace brand. Your leadership will positively influence and move others to consider you and what you're about. You were made to be an agent of peace. You were made to be an ambassador of hope. You were made through your experiences and willingness to become more aware, so stay woke. Get involved. As a minister and coach, I want everyone to see their potential and accept that they can make an incredible impact and that they can treat fear as it is. It is a lie. Think about what makes the greatest sports teams or orchestras in the world. Individuals who are bent on becoming their very best while representing the ideals or brand of the organization. It's incredible to see teamwork come together and win championships. Beautiful music that's played flawlessly when the bands and orchestras come together. Imagine when we all come together and we bring out the best of each other and we're performing at the very top level we were created for. How can others not stop and take notice? How can people not say, that's a beautiful symphony of music, that peace brand? I want to thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts. Hopefully inspire you as much as you've inspired me to be and strengthen a peace brand. Feel free to follow me or visit my website. I'm going to make available to all who visit, as a result of this platform of the Peace Agenda, a free copy of my core values worksheet. Thank you, and let's continue our efforts to preach, teach, and inspire